Welcome back to Philosophy of the Barber. Today's guest is, here we go, Traci Pettengill, right?
Yep.
Yes! All right. Owner of Tooky Village Barbershop. And she's been a barber since 2014, but she was a cosmetologist since 2006. Welcome, Traci.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We are going super off the cuff today because I just spent the last 20 minutes trying to get our mics to work. So first thing we always start off with is how on earth did you decide cutting hair was right for you?
Well, I actually wanted to be a barber since I was 5 years old. It is something that I don't know, I don't know. Like, I wanted to do it since I was 5. Like, I had a family barber as a child, and we went every 3 weeks. We got to go to breakfast before the barbershop, and it was really just a good experience. And
Something to look forward to.
yeah, it really was. And the barber made it really fun for kids, and clearly it sucked me in because it's just something I've always wanted to do. Yeah.
So you finally bit the bullet, and
So I started cosmetology programs in high school back in 2006, and I did senior year of high school at Manchester School of Technology, and then I went on to cosmetology school because in 2008 there was no barber school. So you either had to be an apprentice at a barbershop or you had to, go get your cosmetology license. And
right, because that was the year NESOB opened.
right. So there wasn't, I didn't know about that program. So I went off and I started working at Supercuts when I was 16 years old. I was a receptionist there, and then just furthered my training and kept on with them. And I got like in a super comfort zone with them, like I worked in 2 separate locations, and then I moved off to California. And when I went out to California, I started off the bat working for Supercuts out there, and then I was managing a franchise location out there. So, to me, it was like I was going higher up in that company, and it was more about training and managing and building more of like a network than it was about cutting hair at that point, because I had already been doing it for 7 years. But when I came back to New Hampshire, like the plan was to come to New Hampshire and go to barber school. It's, my needs weren't being met with Supercuts, and that wasn't like where the true passion really laid at the end of the day. And I really just had that like need for the barbershop feel. So I did my research, and I could have done the crossover program anywhere, really. I could have apprenticed, I could have done it anyway, but I heard about NESOB, and it seemed like a really good fit because I'm a hands-on learner. I'm not the book type, so I didn't even have to do book work there. I had 2 chapters to learn as a crossover.
Yeah,
so
like shaving and
the history of barbering. And so I could easily learn 2 chapters and test out on that. It's not, the rest of it was just like refreshers because I had already learned this stuff and had been doing it. So, I did 55 hours a week at NESOB, and then I was going 6 days a week, taking Sundays off, and I think 6.5, 7 weeks later, I was at American Barber Studios. So my entire experience from day one of being a barber was I became a barber in a day. I fought with Mrs. C so hard because, here she is, a Supercut crossover, and she's like, do it this way. And I insisted, like, I know how to cut hair. I'm here to learn how to shave and just get my license and get out of here.
As most crossovers are.
Right. And, I think it only took her like 2 weeks to really get through to me, like, you really need to forget, like, you're paying me, so you can choose to take this course how you choose to take it, but ultimately, like, you need to forget about Supercuts. You need to forget the way that you learned and the way that you were taught and relearn what I'm trying to teach you. And, she got through to me in those couple weeks, so I broke that wall off, and I really did. Like, I let my brain go empty,
And that's such a hard thing to do.
It was really hard, and I was, in a crazy mind space of my own personally. So to go into this, like, with high expectations of just really, like, my experience with Empire Beauty School was, you do this to just learn how to test out. And this school was nothing like just taking the course to test out. This school is teaching you hands-on experience that, like, you get out of a barbershop, not out of a school.
Yeah, out the door from the school, straight into a chair at a barbershop.
Right.
Like, that's their goal.
Right. With the experience, though, not just like, oh my gosh, like, I know the art of barbering, and I know...
I could do it on a mannequin.
So, yeah, exactly. Every day at the school, I had, at least 5 clients.
I can't imagine how difficult it would be, especially having been steeped in the hair industry for so long the way you were, to then get to a place where you can mentally, like, you have to humble yourself in order to be open to learning and to kind of accept the possibility that what you had learned up to that point was not going to be useful in the new endeavor you were going for.
Yeah. So it's like starting with zero experience again, aside from, like, knowing your tools, knowing the people skills, knowing the environment, which I did not because I worked in a Supercuts, which is, primarily female. And it is, I went from a very feminine background to a very masculine background, on top of, my sexuality, like being a female with my sexuality as liking other women, entering into a masculine barbershop. And that first day was like the scariest thing on earth. But, I humbled myself, like you say, and I walked down those steps, and I just took that, like, boldness of me, and I'm like, you know what, this is where I want to be, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to let anyone stop this. And that was difficult. I worked as the only female in that barbershop for, I think it was about 2 years before another female joined.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother, like, added complication to, like, entering a new section of the industry. Is now you're entering the section of the industry where you are woefully outnumbered. Right. Like, maybe 20% of the industry is female when it comes to barbers.
Right.
And this is like the practicing of barbers, doing the neck shaves and the straight razor shaves, and, like, all that barbering is actively doing that, not just, like, crossing over for the sake of crossing over if you want to be an instructor at a beauty school or something.
Right.
But, like, the practice of it, it's
it was definitely hands-on.
Yeah.
Like, hands dirty, dig deep, like, it went, like,
well, it's not always pleasant. Like,
it was a locker room. I walked into a locker room every day. It was beer burps and,
the toilet seat's always up.
I remember one day I didn't do the chores and I had to scoot out early, and I come back the next morning with 50 empty Bud Light cans on my chair. And that was like the hazing of the day. Like, the next time it was a pile of hair on my footrest, and that was the hazing of the day. And it was just these things that men do that clearly I am so unaware of. And it was like, in a sense, it was like, hey, I love you and I'm going to give you shit, because if I didn't like you, I wouldn't have done this, because I knew I wouldn't be able to do this. But, they're testing me. And my response was, over time, we no longer, any of us work together anymore. And we look back at that, and in the moment, I'm like, man, I hate you like a brother. Like, I love you, but I hate you. And now when I see these people outside of that, we're all in different places now, and I see them, and it's like, we have that family bond. And as much shit as they gave me, like, I gave it right back.
And I feel like, so I've always been somebody whose friend group has largely been male, which is why I've gravitated towards being a barber, because I click much better with males in the plural form than I do females in the plural form.
Right.
Because females as a group
is much different, much more difficult to deal
very
with.
difficult
Yes.
dynamic.
Yeah.
So that kind of dynamic is something I've always been familiar with. That plus, like, being in the military, same kind of camaraderie, like equal giving of grief. And it's one of those, like, you need to be worried if they're not doing that.
Right.
Because
right,
if they're not doing that,
right.
that means they don't like you and they're isolating you away from the group.
Right. Right.
And that is
And it took
death.
me time to realize that too, you know? Like, at first I'm like, man, this is such a personal hit. Like, I felt so, you know, ganged up on. But then I see, like, the next one come in, and the next one happened to be a female, married woman. She didn't get as much of that grief. So then I'm like, what the heck? But then I see the next guy come in, and they got it worse. So I'm like, okay, the playing field is so even, and these people accept me, and, like, it's okay, you know?
Yeah, depending on, like, the station in life somebody is in will depend on the dynamic of the group.
Right.
And it's so, like, weird human psychology. But, like, when you step away from it and can see it for what it is, it's like, all right,
Yes.
I get this,
yes.
like, hierarchy situation.
And it's weird. And, like, you know, I don't know, as a business owner now and having, you know, different people around me that I'm working with, you know, that was my first barbershop that I worked in. I stayed there for 6 years, and then I went on to owning my own.
6 years?
Yeah, you know, so having a different group of males around, you know, it's funny because, like, one of my barbers is, like, a little too timid to, like, joke around because I'm a female, you know, and the other one, he gets it, so he, like, does that to me, and, like, we'll joke around and, like, give each other crap throughout the day, and, like, that's what we do. And it's, like, funny how I hated it when I was at the other shop, and now I have my own shop, and I'm, like, looking for that, and it's not there, you know? It's like, what the heck?
Well, and, like, the first shop was very, like, you didn't control the environment.
Exactly.
You were going into that environment.
Right.
And then you had to adapt to it. But being an owner, you create the environment.
Right.
It is all what you want it to be, so you have to, like, make it happen.
Right.
So
And I do. Oh,
but it's
man.
such a weird learning curve
It
when
is.
it's like, wait, I have all of the control.
You know, actually, I don't really care to do that with my shop. Like, I let my barbers know that, like, it's literally just as much their shop as it is mine. I don't like to have that feeling of control, because typically when I give myself that, I'll run with it. And I don't like that, you know? So I really, like, obviously, no matter what, like, I have the superior, like, position because I am shop owner.
You got veto power.
I do, but I really, like, in decision making, try to involve my barbers as much as possible. And, like, you know, even, like, you know, hey, what kind of hours do you guys want to work? What kind of, like, holidays would you like to take off? What would you, like, I really want each barber to, like, put their own artistic piece of them into the shop and make them feel like they have just as much control in a sense, you know?
Well, and that's one of those things that's always bothered me, at least when it comes to, obviously, we're in the state of New Hampshire. Our laws are our laws. Different states, different story. But for us, when it comes to legally being a booth renter, like, I feel like some shop owners take advantage of the ignorance of some people in the industry, where it's like, legally, they are, like, renting a booth. Flat rent, commission, whatever it is. They got their own insurance. They're their own business. Like,
Right.
they have certain things that they are legally allowed to control.
Right.
In fact, you have to let them do that.
Right.
But I feel like some shop owners take advantage of the ignorance of new barbers sometimes
I
that
agree
don't
with
know that.
I agree with that, and it's hurtful to the industry.
Well, and especially when, like, some people just don't know it until they leave that and go somewhere else, and you realize, oh, I can set things, and this is what I do. Like, for instance, here, they are, like, flat booth rent. I don't know what they make. It's not my problem. That's between them and the IRS, right? And to that end, like, if they want to block off time on their schedule to do stuff, have a vacation, have a doctor's appointment, they do that.
Right.
The only thing I can ask and do ask of them is to let me know.
So there's an open communication level. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you just, so that way you know if a customer calls, oh, they're taking this time off, but I'm available to book you on another day. But at least you know in your head, like, you don't necessarily need to tell anyone why they're taking the time off, but it's just, you know,
But
you need
there's-
to know a order.
Well, and there's also that perception that, like, the customer doesn't know how your business is run. The customer always just assumes that it's an employer and employee situation. So therefore, the employer should know what's going on with their employees.
Yeah.
So that general customer expectation of the owner needs to know what's going on in their business. And if they answer, I don't know, to any sort of thing having to do with their business, that means that they're not doing their job.
Right.
So I cannot have that be a perception.
Yeah.
So the one thing is, I don't care, like, if a catastrophe occurs. If you get a second, just tell me. Even if I can't do anything about it, you can't do anything about it, the world can't do anything. But at least I know. That way, when your regular is like, hey, where's just so-and-so? Hey, emergency came up. I'm sorry. I can,
Right.
book you down the line.
Right.
And offer a solution to the problem I'm presenting them with.
Right. Right. I think it is definitely important to show that there is order in your shop. Definitely. It's that fine line of finding, as a shop owner and doing a booth rent situation, it's that fine line of finding, like, the control you have of your business versus the control you have of the booth renter.
Yeah, very different things.
And they are. And I want my booth renters, I came from a shop that was a percentage type of thing. So the more I did, the more I make. And the more I do, the more you make.
Yep.
And it was a very structured environment, needless to say. In my environment now, I'm comfortable with the booth renting scenario because you are in charge of your own destiny to the fullest. That I think is something that I've heard a lot in my past, is that, like, you create your own destiny. You create your own path. You are in charge of that. You are in charge of your own success. When in fact, I don't think I felt like that in my past. And I don't want to say that that has anything to do with other people that held me back as much as myself that held me back, because that message is clear.
Right.
And that has nothing to do with a specific person or organization or anything that would have held me back aside from myself. And I think, like, when COVID hit, it was definitely an eye-opener because, I had built this, like, kind of like empire on myself. I created a name for myself in this industry, finally. And it took me getting away from an organization to do that and trying something new. And I created my name through that. And, like, when COVID hit, it really felt like everything that, like, I had worked hard at my previous location had kind of been ripped away. Like, that place felt like home. That place had, like, I don't know, I worked 60 hours a week, and that was my life. I mean, I had 2 days off a week, and, like, cool, but most of my life was spent around those people in that basement.
Yeah, it's a huge connection. You spend more time with them than you do family.
So when COVID hit, it just felt like life was just ripped away. Like, that heart was taken out. That place wasn't home. I don't have a home. I don't have a place to go. And I was doing haircuts in my garage because it's like, okay, unemployment hasn't hit. I need to make a living. I'm risking losing my license to make a livelihood. And during that time, I realized the garage haircuts only lasted a short amount of time because I had realized, I went out looking, okay, maybe I can get a job being a mail carrier. Maybe I can get a job doing deliveries. Maybe I can get a job in manufacturing. And I'm going through all of these, trying to find an income, while barbering can't be done, what can I do? And I really realized, like, barbering is the only thing I do. Barbering is in my soul, my heart. Like, barbering is what I do. I am barbering. So to replace that with something else, like, it's not going to happen. And, I went back after the opening and I really realized, like, it didn't feel like home. It was different. Something's changed. And what that changed was me. So I have these people telling me, like, you create your own destiny. And in my head, I'm thinking, like, these people are blocking me from that. But, like, taking 2 months off of barbering and really realizing, like, that's what you want to do, that's you are barbering, like, that was like, okay, like, these people aren't what's in my way. Like, I was in my own way, and now going back to this, like, it was a mind shift. And it's like, I'm ready to be my own boss, because for like a little while doing haircuts in the garage, I was my own boss. I'm creating appointments. I'm marketing myself. I'm reaching out to people that I typically would be afraid to. I see people walk on the sidewalk like, hey, I know you. Come get a haircut. And, you know, it was a complete mind shift. And
I think a lot of people experienced that during this 7 or 8 weeks where we weren't able to work. It was like, for me, my mindset pre-lockdown last year compared to post-lockdown, or actually during lockdown, was a huge switch flipper for me. Like, I was in a like third worst depression in my life situation prior to, and then during lockdown, it was like an immediate shift. It's like, oh sweet, I got chaos that I need to adapt to. This is my strong suit. I'm where I need to be. And my brain, I don't know, just decided to like, all right, well, we're not gonna like give you depression chemicals right now. We're gonna give you like, let's be productive chemicals. But knowing myself throughout the last 30 something years, I know that like a quick flip like that is not long lasting. So there's still stuff that I needed to work on. So I kind of took those 8 weeks to work on it. And continual work in progress, right? Doesn't matter what aspect of your life.
Always
progress,
working. Progress, not perfection.
Trips and all.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna stumble, you're gonna fall, but you gotta keep going.
For sure.
I think that's the inevitability, and now as you're a business owner, the inevitability of being a shop owner is that you should kind of ask yourself what's wrong if somebody has been with you for a really long time. You're going, are they just content? Are they not a driven person? Or do they feel stifled? Are they complacent? Are they just too comfortable to where they don't want to move forward to the next step in their life? That's like a totally different mindset that I find that I need to have for my barbers on their behalf, because having that expectation that they're going to be gone eventually is a realistic one you have to have.
Yeah. That is a really good expectation to have, because just like myself, I've been through 4 different environments. Granted, I stayed at those places for longer than needed, and I did get complacent issues, and when that happens, you end up building up a resentment towards your area, towards the people around you, and then you harbor ill feelings. And fortunately for me, through both places, so unfortunately that happened, and I stayed longer than needed. I grew resentments, but fortunately for me, I've been able to really, one situation, I wasn't able to sit down and talk with that person because that person wasn't mature enough to hear the message I was trying to deliver. So I had to make that amend that on my own.
Yeah, that's a piece you have to make with yourself.
And it took me years, seriously years, to do that. And honestly, I saw that person outside of Salon Centric 2 months ago, and that person turned their head right against. So I still know that I made that right choice on what I did, and I made amends with that situation. And then the next person that I did build resentment against, I was able to sit down and have a conversation with that person in a mature fashion and let go of those things. And I'm so super grateful for that, because, that is a person, once again, I can play the blame game all day long, but when all actuality, it is myself, and learning how to take accountability for myself and my actions and the paths that I create. And so fortunately for that, I was able to sit down with that person and put it all on the table and just be like, this is how I feel, and it didn't make me feel good, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the conversation, you hug it out, and it's really a good thing, and, it's hard. It's really hard making relations in the industry and then really realizing that you're ready for your next step, but having to let go of the step that you've walked. on this path, and it's a great path, and you have these people that help you get down the road, and then, you know, you don't need their hand anymore, and then it's like, it's really hard to let go of the hand, you know, and it's like, you can still be on the path with me, but I don't need your hand anymore, and I'm ready to, like, you know, create my own path at this point, you know, and so it's like, it's just really crazy to me to think now I'm on this path where I'm holding hands, you know, and it's like, I left one place because it's like, you know, I don't want to train these barbers anymore. I'm sick of being like the crossover for these people. And
then you decided to open your shop, and now you have to hold their hands.
You know, so it's like, you know, it's a well-rounded, you know, I don't know. It's just about gaining that wisdom, and it's like having that understanding. And each perspective is different because, you know, you change a new leaf, and then it's like you look back and you're like, holy crap, like now my perspective is different. And it's really like, you know, it's just a crazy journey. Life is a crazy journey. But the barbering scene in itself, it's such a small community, and it's like, you know, you see the ups and the downs of people's careers, and bottom line, most of the people in the industry have that passion, that, like, it's that fire in your soul, and we all have it, you know, so it's just about finding the path.
Well, and I feel like one of the things I like asking new barber students, because we've all gone through it, is the you know, are you having barber dreams yet? Because let's face it, when you're going through barber school, if you do not have at least one barber dream a night, you're doing something wrong. You are not in it. You are not steeped in it. If you are not, like, waking up going, why did I just, like, have a dream about doing a classic men's?
Or holding the razor this way.
Yes, or, like, Mrs. C is, like, in your head all the time.
I don't know about every night, but...
Oh, well, when you're there for 2 years.
Okay, fair.
But, like, if you go through a whole program, because I know you only did the crossover,
right?
But I feel like maybe it's, like, within 600 to 800 hours, not just the 300, but you get, like, they weasel their way in to...
I mean, to be fair, I worked in a station on Saturdays next to Dave for 5 years. And then I stopped working on Saturdays. But Dave was my side barber on Saturday morning, 6:30 a.m. for years.
I don't envy you. I really don't.
We're both chatters, so, you know, we fed off of each other. It was a really good time.
And that's the thing, though, is, like, Dave never found a home in my head the way Cynthia did.
Yeah. So I didn't work with Cynthia. So when I went to the barber school, Dave was primarily the teacher. Yep. She would come in at 10 and do office work and then help on the floor.
Yep.
And then they change roles, you know. So it was like a rotating thing. So now she does that and he does the opposite or whatever.
Well, see, for mine, it was Dave was there Monday through Thursday, and Cynthia did Friday and Saturday.
Oh, okay.
So, like, Dave was the reassuring instructor, like, building you up throughout the week, going, oh, you're doing a good job, tell you, you know, a couple of things you need to fix here or there, unless you royally screwed up, right? And then she comes in. Then Cynthia comes in. Like, by Thursday, end of the long day, you're like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. And then when you decided to come during the part-time class for extra hours, first haircut, rips it to shreds. You feel the size of a Lego person, and you're like, well, I needed to be humbled because otherwise, apparently, I'm not open to learning when I think I'm, you know.
I can totally relate to that feeling because when they told me that I had the job at American, that's when my haircut checks at school got much more, like, severely, intensely looked at. So yeah. You'd call for a check, and she'd come over and she'd, like, barely look at it because she knew, like, okay, this is, like, you're good, you know what you're doing, like, go ahead. And so she'd be like, yep, you're fine. But then when I got the job for American, she'd come over and she'd be like, this is good for the barber school, but now I'm going to check you for the barbershop, and this is what you missed. And there'd be, like, 5 more things. And I'm like, whoa, what? It's the next level.
I think that's one of the things. I actually started to get frustrated at Dave. Probably halfway through my master barber. Because I knew that come Friday, I would get a haircut ripped apart. And he was not ripping mine apart during the week.
Yep.
And I got frustrated with him. And I was like, this is crap. I know there are things on this I can fix. Why aren't you pointing them out?
So his son, AJ, did the same thing to me at the barbershop. Joey would pick mine apart. Because once you went into his barbershop, you would still get checks. Mm-hmm. So Joey would pick my haircuts apart. And he's training me to be a better barber. And AJ would come over and he would just be like, oh, there's just like a little bit of hair right there. But other than that, you're good. And I'm just like, at that time, I felt like I didn't want checks because here I am. I've been doing hair. I've been in this hair thing longer than you. Like, yeah, you're a barber, but like I started this in 2006 and you've been doing this for 4 years. And how can I take this seriously? So I had that like mentality of like, I'm better than you. Clearly, it was distorted thinking. But at that time, I really just was embarrassed in front of my customer. Like, please don't undermine my skill in front of my customer and point out what's wrong with my haircut. What's wrong with you? You know, and I'm like, you're going to get me no clients. Like, no one's going to sit in my chair. What the heck? So little do I realize, like, okay, there's like religiously loyal customers in a barbershop and customers come back. And the customers that go to this barbershop
know
the check thing. They know that you're new. They know that you actually are not as good as these two. So after my checks are like done, I don't need checks anymore. Excuse me. You know, another new barber comes in and then they're getting checks for like 6 months. I only got checks for like 6 weeks. And then I realized like, shit. I'm past the point of being able to ask for a check anymore, but I kind of want a check again because they're actually making you a better barber. And now I don't know how to fix what they're pointing out because I'm like not humble enough to ask them for help at this point because I've just shooed it away. So then it took me like, you know, even longer to get to that point because I'm like, you know, so it's like you have to go back through that humiliating experience of like, okay, like, asking for help. And that's hard as a new barber to ask for help.
Oh yeah. Well, and so here, anytime we get a new barber, especially straight out of school, like we always have a discussion and we have this like figure out like what's going to work best for them, what they're comfortable with, what they're not comfortable with. So we always have a mutual understanding, but it's like you call for checks as long as you feel you want checks.
Right.
And typically, it's like 6 months. That's usually about how long it goes. Especially if they're like working part-time while finishing a master barber program, which a couple of them have done. Where it's like, all right, so you kind of get school time and you get in the shop time.
Right.
Which are different, but really good when you can have them both.
Right, right.
So the great thing about us is that we have so many barbers that have been barbering for various periods of time and use different skill levels and different techniques that it's basically going, all right, you're the newbie, you call for checks, whoever,
right.
Because you get everybody's knowledge.
Right.
They're going to show you tips and tricks and techniques that you're going to be like, oh, that works, or maybe that doesn't work for me. That's not super, efficient. But it's great because the larger pool of knowledge you're pulling from, the more you can accumulate. Because if you're only working with one other person, it's like, cool, I can learn what you know. And that's it.
Right.
And if that's not a lot, bummer.
Right.
If it is a lot, cool.
Yeah, my newer barber that I have, he went to a different school. So I ended up actually sending him over to NESOB for a couple days to get like the basis. I had Cynthia work with him and get like the basis of how to hold a comb and how to hold your shears and this is how. And then like kind of piggybacked off of that. And then now that I have another barber in the shop, he's learning even more, bouncing off of both of us. But he's also like a new gen. So he's more of a YouTuber. So, like, on his downtime, he will sit on YouTube and watch tutorials of barbers cutting hair, or Instagram, or wherever. You know, so it's like a mixture of whatever's on the internet that he's getting, on top of where he learned from his foundation of education, on top of NESOB, on top of 2 experienced barbers. So, I mean, it would be great. Like, I would love to have a shop where I can have more chairs. Right now I can only have 3, but, you know, looking into bigger spaces for the future to have, you know, at least 5 chair barbershop, because to have, you know, like you're saying, different levels, different experiences, different knowledge, like, the more people that you surround yourself in this trade, like, the more you pick up. And that's awesome. You know, on the other end of that, it's hard to work, and it's hard to run a large chair barbershop.
Yes.
It is hard to make that individual barber feel like they are a part of decision making in the shop, and it is a community family type thing, you know, because inevitably there's cliques that are formed. There are people that are on the outs, there are people that are on the ends, and it is very difficult when you're dealing with, you know, you have one heart but 8 brains, because everyone has the passion for barbering, but everyone is so different on the outside of that.
Well, that's one of those things I've struggled with and had to adapt to, is the dynamic shift based on the number of barbers you're working with. Like, 3 chairs is a magic number. It's just magic in a barbershop, because it's kind of like a friend group that's 3. Like, a threesome friend group is great.
Yep.
Because, like, everybody fills a role, nobody feels left out if, you know, everybody's cohesive, and there's not too many personalities to have to work around. Same thing when it comes to, like, being a roommate. It's 3 could work as long as, like, everybody meets their obligations. But the struggle comes when you're into, like, 4, because then there's 2 and 2.
Right.
You can get a split with clicks.
Right.
You can get the 5,
Still
which
split.
is yes and no. The 5 I found better, oddly enough. But it's the 6th one that's so hard. Like, the 3rd chair for us was really hard to find a long term, and then the 6th chair was really hard to find a long term. Like, 4 and 5, immediately. That's why we ended up expanding, was because I had one barber who was looking to no longer commute to Hooksett, and
he's been with you now for how long?
yeah, 2.5 years.
Right.
And then another one who's fresh out of school, and I needed another girl.
Yeah.
Because I was no longer a girl to anybody.
Yeah.
And I needed that balance in the atmosphere of the shop.
Right.
Because, like, if I can't, like, be acknowledged as a female in the shop anymore, that means there's going to get a lot of testosterone going on.
Right.
As you experienced.
Right.
And that is not a comfortable environment for everyone. Especially if you're not a dominant male. Like, you can have a timid barber that feels super uncomfortable in that environment. They're like, this is too much testosterone for me. I'm uncomfortable. And that's not okay. So
I came from a high-fueled testosterone environment. So,
yeah.
you know, I like being the only female in the barbershop. I enjoy it.
I used to.
There's something about that. Like, there are clients out there that prefer a woman's touch. Maybe not necessarily like all the drama and fun-filled facts that come with women, you know, and I try to keep it at minimal and really focus on my client and their experience, and not so much about, like, me and, like, me. It's more about you, because you come in for a service and my attention is primarily on you. And obviously you can relate through the conversation, but to shift the conversation to yourself, you know, you get different perspectives in your career. And, like, I'm running on my 14th year in this industry. So obviously at first in the chair, like, it's easy to talk about yourself. It's really, well, for me, I'll speak for myself. It's easy for me to talk about myself, you know? So it's like learning and seeing that perspective, like when you actually hear someone else with a client talking about themselves, and then how your customers' body language is towards that and their like mannerisms towards that barber talking about themselves. And it's like, man, you're sitting there and you're like, can you just shift your conversation to that person because they're sick of you talking about you, you know? So when you see that perspective, you're like, okay, like you need to step it up a notch and like really talk about anything other than yourself. Like, you know, talk about the weather, talk about vacation, like figure it out.
I do what I kind of try my best that if I'm going to say something about myself to a customer, it's in relation to it's more of a connection point, letting them know that I've had similar experience to what they've experienced.
Bounced off of them.
Yes, so that it's a sharing of information that's back and forth, not a dump on one side.
Correct. And that's called a conversation.
Right.
You know, so like dumping is like the perfect, you know, word for that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, exactly.
And the luxury of me being able to have like a closed environment with my customers and not having an audience or a waiting area, it's like, it's nice because we cover topics that are a little heavier, a little more personal. And I appreciate that personal connection with my customers where their comfort level is such that they're willing to share those things with me.
Exactly, yeah. I agree with that.
So, going back to the way like shops are being run, and being open communication with your barbers, the way I kind of like to explain it for customers that are curious, because we don't run things the way I would say the typical shop is run, though there's so many ways to run a shop, it's crazy, is that I like take the concept of a co-op and pulled it back a little bit. I want to treat them as close to a co-op as possible. That way everybody feels invested and everybody is like part of things and part of the conversation, and you know their input is brought forth. But ultimately you still have that veto power. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely still, I mean, all decisions are final through me.
Right.
And, you know, what I've noticed, so it's like the toughest thing for me is I've noticed that a lot of people go into barbershop ownership as a partnership. And people tend to have like that network of connections. Like they either have a wife that they're bouncing these ideas off of, or they have another barber that they decided to invest in this business on, like, together with. And like what I've noticed is like I really went into barbershop ownership blindsided. Like COVID hit, I was leaving one place to go to another place, and
yeah, that took some balls for when you decided to do it. Same thing with some of the other barbers we know, is like opening a shop in 2020.
2020, yeah. Well, here's the thing. So when I'm doing garage haircuts, looking into working at UPS, because I have no form of income, I really truly realized like this is my career. I refuse to let this career die because this is my passion. Regardless, this is what I'm doing the rest of my life. So why wouldn't I own a barbershop? Why would I just rent a booth off of someone? I had already given my 2 weeks notice. I was ready to move on. Once again, I had stayed somewhere on my own, got complacent, built up resentment, and it was time for me to move on. I had another lead with another barbershop that gave me the green light, told me I had a job, handed out business cards, told all of my customers that this is where I'm going. And unfortunately, that barbershop had like a severe problem with communication, a severe lack of.
Yep.
And I was informed off of another barber because the owner didn't have communication. So I reached out because I'm panicking because my job's on the line here, right? And that person said, you know, it's probably not going to work out. You should probably look somewhere else. So I'm in panic mode because I'm like, you know, I'm leaving a place that I was at for 6 years. This place that I was headed towards gave me the green light. And now I don't have a job. And like, this is like, what am I going to be, a janitor? Like, this is coming like way too surreal for me. So I went on Instagram. I searched high and low. Like, it didn't even matter where my booth was. I needed a job. I needed to cut hair. This is what I do. So I found this place, Tooky Village Barbershop. And, you know, they had begun this barbershop for their young daughter. And it was like so new to them too. So like I went into it blindsided because I went in and I'm like, I'll manage your shop for you. And then it became, are you willing to sell your shop? Because why am I going to invest my time and experience into your shop for you to profit off of this, for you to have your shop when I'm like so deserving of my own? And this entire career, I've really self-doubted myself, and like the loyalty of people and community have backed me up tenfold. I had someone that I didn't think would travel so far to get a haircut, and he tracked me down, and he drives from Gilmington all the way to Kentucky, New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's a hike.
I have a person that comes from New Hampton once a week, Merrimack. Like, and I tell these people, like, you know, there's other barbers in your area, there's good, but they're like, no, you're my barber. And we're willing to travel high and low for you. And like, that's insane to me. Like, I love what I do. It's a passion. I like literally put heart and soul into every single haircut. So it makes sense. But like, there's that self-doubt of like, there are plenty of people that can cut hair just as good. So something about my personality is magnetic. I don't know.
Well, and that's one thing I think the longer you're in the industry and the more you learn to appreciate it, is that the thing that we learn in barber school is the 80-20 rule.
Yes.
And you don't believe it until you're in the industry for at least a few years, where it's like, all right, so it's really the connection you're making between people. And the funny thing is I had to kind of break it down. And, I mean, you can get philosophical. This is philosophy of the barber, so we can. Where boiling something down to what it is at its core. You know, why is someone coming to see you? And it's because of the human connections we make. Like, yes, the initial reason and the surface like thing that needs to get done that day is a haircut, right, or whatever service you're giving them. But why they choose you or why they keep coming back is because a human connection of substance is being made. So as long as your focus is on that, as well as the quality of the service you're offering, but making that connection with that person, if you do that, they will come back. Like, they will, if you make that connection, they will take the mediocre haircut that you gave them because you're new.
Right.
And keep coming back and help you get to where they want their cut to be because they've connected with you.
Right. And it's so crazy because working for Supercuts, you know, you just literally get whoever sits in your chair. These people want quick, they want fast, they don't care about, you know,
that's the
I never
business model,
had,
isn't it?
well, right. So I never had a clientele because it didn't matter who, like I had a few, like small following, you know, but when I get into barbering, like, you know, this is something about me that you may not know. I went out to California in 2013 to go to rehab. I got clean off of opiates. And so now I have, you know, 8 years off of substances. And when I came back from California, that was a really hard challenge for me. You know, because I had a year clean and I'm coming back into an environment that I didn't want to stay in. My goal was to go to barber school, 2 months done, move out of New Hampshire. I didn't want to be here. You know, so for me, you know, self-doubt is an easy thing. It's a really easy thing. I'm a recovering addict. So my whole life has been about, you know, I could go on for days about the trauma that I've been through. I could go on about all of the things that I have endured in this short amount of lifespan. You know, I'm 31 years old. But ultimately, this last year, 2020, let's talk about that because, you know, the world shut down. There's a pandemic, end of the world. I have to say that 2020 has been my biggest regrowth year of a lifetime because I had a customer. There was an altercation at my previous shop with the manager and myself, and it left me in tears in front of a client. And it was a very upsetting moment for me because this person hurt me. And it was more of I was ashamed than it was of like, you hurt my feelings. Like, I was genuinely ashamed of that behavior that came out of me in defense of that person attacking me. And I wept to my customer, and my customer told me, he said, "You have a large following. You are amazing. You are awesome at what you do. People love you. And you could go anywhere and open your own place and people will come." And I didn't believe him in that instant, but he put that like small mustard seed in my brain. And like for me, since 2013, like change has been constant. And I've embraced change. And like it was once such a hard thing for me to do because like I would get complacent, but complacent was safe. And someone who has trauma and all of these things, like you want to feel safe, you know, and that's your defense mechanism is like, if I get complacent, like that's fine because I'm safe. I know my routine, I know my schedule, and I don't have anything coming at me where I have to be like, oh my gosh, like I wasn't expecting that. So I would say as far as 2020 goes, like it has been the year of change. And like it's amazing because like I finally have that, like I finally feel like the true me is like not afraid to show. And like I care about people. I really do. So to be a barber is like an honor for me because like during when the COVID pandemic hit, I was able to take the one barber that worked for me or booth rented from me, and we went to the Concord Coalition to end homelessness, and we did homeless haircuts under a big white tent in the back. And it was scary because, you know, here I am dealing with a not so sanitary community in the middle of a pandemic. But my heart says no one else wants to cut these people's hair, so I'm gonna go and cut these people's hair. And I didn't care if Kane was gonna help me or he was, like if he was gonna come, awesome. The more manpower, the better. But if not, like I will stand out here for hours and do free haircuts for these people because that's the right thing to do. The schools couldn't do it, you know? So obviously the schools had to back out because they can't do their like community outreach. So it's like, what barbershop is gonna step up and take care of this? So we went out and did it. And they are actually looking for anyone to help them right now. We put in 3 months, and like I think it would be cool if, say, you had 24 barbershops that once a month every 2 years do a day where it's a free haircut. Then these homeless people, you don't feel like it's a commitment where you have to, like I was working 6 days a week, and on Mondays, the one day my shop was closed, I was doing these homeless haircuts. And for one person to do that is so much work. But like if the barbering community as a whole came together, Concord being the capital of the state, go to Concord once a month every 2 years, get these guys' hairs cut, you know? I think that's a cool thing to do. But then, you know, I don't know. For me, as a child, the barbershop was a place of community. You know, you go in, you have all ages of people. And, like, I don't know, it's just a community center base. And, like, way back in the day, that's where you would go and you would talk with, you know, whoever, and you'd get the up-to-date news, and like, I really want my barbershop to kind of be that place for Kentucky and the Hopkinton area. Like, so when I took on Tooky Village Barbershop, I feel like I took on the community. You know, like now, this community is my responsibility as far as bringing people together. You know, I have a everyday cafe right next door to my barbershop, and it is a hopping cafe. It brings in so many people. So it's like, I want the next door business to do the same. I want our downtown to be thriving and lively. So I joined, and I'm a board member of the Chamber of Commerce for the town, and I'm helping develop all of the local business in town. So that way all of downtown can be a like thriving, walkable area to visit. And, you know, a part of that is on June 5th, we have the Best Buddies Friendship Walk. So we have a young man that comes into our barbershop, and he does have Down syndrome, and he works with the Best Buddies, and they do a friendship walk in Concord. And so we're going to be sponsoring him pretty much. And we're going to be printing out t-shirts and selling shirts, and all donations from those shirts, all proceeds, like including what I pay to make the shirt, all of the proceeds that the shirts raise will go right to the Best Buddies Foundation. And this helps, people of all kinds with disabilities. I don't believe that it's only Down syndrome. I believe that it's a community that looks over a disability and brings people together and raises this money to help the people that maybe don't have, that have a disability, so that's really cool. And then, like we do things like if someone comes, like, we'll be sponsoring race cars at the racetrack this summer. And, I don't know, we're just trying to get things like more community-based, and especially after a pandemic and everyone isolating and everyone feeling like, oh man, I have to wear a mask, I have to be 6 feet apart. Like, there is a way to bring your community and people together amidst a pandemic. And life is like starting to happen again on top of that. So it's important to like make people feel like, you don't have to sit at home alone and be bored on the weekend.
Well, and I think for any good barbershop, it's one of the things that your customers should very much be aware of and comfortable with is you're always doing things in a sanitary fashion, because that's a requirement for us to have a license.
Well, right.
That's
we were
constant.
Trained to do that.
It doesn't matter like what is happening in the world. We are always clean because we need to be, because we work with sharp objects and the possibility of blood.
Right.
So that matters. So I think for solid barbershops in communities who continue to serve them, the one great thing is that your clientele always have confidence in you. Like my first customer today, she came, I'll book people before our regular opening hours because I've done that for a long time.
I do that too.
And, she put a note in her appointment that she had made, like, hey, if you can give me an earlier, I'd really appreciate it. Because she is still terrified about, like, her medical conditions and what that means when it comes to COVID and all of that stuff. But I haven't seen her in over a year. But she's confident enough, she knows how we are, to come and finally get her haircut.
And have faith in you that you're being sanitary.
Yeah.
I actually had an individual come in my chair last week, and he brought his own neck trimmer. And granted, I use my own clippers and my own shears and
every other tool.
Unfortunately, he thought for whatever reason that my neck trimmer was unsanitary and he wanted me to use his. So before I even begun the haircut, I said to him, I'm more than willing to use your tool, but if I use mine, your haircut will come out better. And I even disassembled my wall Figura animal trimmer thing. I took the head off. I took my air hose. There was no hair in it, but I took my air hose and I blew out the hair, quotation, air quotes, and I sprayed my Cool Care all over the tool, and I left it disassembled on my counter. The entirety of the haircut. I went the whole haircut without using a neck trimmer, just to prove to him, like, it's extra sanitary, like, well over the 10 minutes. And then I put it together, and I said, so are you still confident in me using my tools on your hair? And he was like, yes, thank you. But that extra step that I showed him, that I am a sanitary barber, and this is a sanitary barber shop, like, you can feel comfortable not bringing your own, like, pubic trimmers to my barbershop. And also, just to end that, I left the neck fuzz at the end of the haircut just to see what his little Walmart neck trimmers would do. Didn't even clip one hair. It pulled. And I said that to him. I said, and also your neck trimmer doesn't cut hair. So I'm happy that I, made him confident at the beginning that I can use my tool, because if it came time to using his, I wouldn't have been happy with that haircut leaving my shop.
Right.
So.
Well, and going back to being more active in the community and everything, and especially with communications skills with barbers. So there's always been a lot of starts when it comes to trying to create some sort of organization or cohesive communication in like all one spot when it comes to barbers in the northern New England area. And I feel like one of the stoppages to that being successful is one of the things that you'll see when it comes to downtown businesses is there's such a culture of autonomy and being your own boss and running your own business that sometimes it works backwards in your brain when like having to work with a group. It's kind of like generational difference where if you're a Gen Xer, like you don't really identify as Gen X unless somebody goes, so what generation are you? And you're like, I think Gen X. But you're not like, yeah, Gen X. Right. The way millennials are like, yeah, millennials. Sort of. I think we've been traumatized by being like, those millennials. But then you have, like, millennials work really well in groups, and they have that in common with baby boomers. Like, they identify strongly as a generation, and they, you know, group projects in school are their strong suit. And then you have, like, Gen X. And I'm, like, I'm half a Gen X and half a millennial at heart.
I agree. I am too.
How I was raised.
Yes. I don't want to be a part of the millennial group, but I have some defects that are just automatically there from the millennial group.
Yes. Yeah. Feel the same way.
Yeah.
So I think like being an individual business owner, we're naturally very suited to that because we don't like having to depend on other people to pull their weight.
Right.
So do you think because like people with the mindsets that we have tend to gravitate towards industries like barbering? Do you feel like that's kind of like might be one of the stopping points as to why we're not into this whole like let's make an organization and talk to each other?
And I really do think that because I know like predecessors of ours have tried to create a barber union and it literally just doesn't work out. And like it's the same with like the board of barbering. Like, are you gonna go and join the board of barbering and support our state, or
I mean,
you know?
If I knew when they had an opening for a shop owner, maybe, but
someone's been on it for a little while.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you know what I'm saying?
But it's also something like that's not communicated,
right?
Like, do you ever see anything going bloop? There's an opening for you know the cosmetology school owner or whatever chair happens to be open. Do you ever see that? Like, is there any sort of forum or community, like, centralized other than the state website for jobs?
Let's just say, like, look at the Connecticut Barber Expo and then look at the Manchester, New Hampshire Barber Expo.
So I didn't go to the Manchester one.
It's my point. So, you know, I don't know, like...
But that's for a different reason. I've been to 2 Connecticut Barber Expos, and
they're awesome. Well, okay, for like a socially crowded area that has lots of people, they're awesome. But that's the community of barbering right there. You know, so why can't the northeast part get that? I maybe should be less about competition and more about community.
I have a theory.
What's
it's
this?
Way more of a cultural thing than it is an industry thing in my eyes.
Okay.
Because as you've been to the Connecticut Barber Expo, as have I, I've competed in there.
People travel far for that one too.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, J Majors and all the people that run those types of expos do a phenomenal job. They are business people. They know what they're doing. And getting, you know, barber influencers and all sorts of stuff involved, fantastic. But north of Manchester...
Well, where is there barbers? Like, there's not many.
True. Well, there's way more than when we first started.
Agreed.
There's, like, way more.
Yes.
And that's what I think is, like, there is a cultural separation because there's, like, in my eyes, there's, like, 2 separate factions of barbering.
I agree.
There's classic... Old school, once a month, get the haircut, it does a job. And then there's
the show,
the Instagram cut, the designs, the shoe aesthetic, the short term. It's basically the hairstyling end of barbering, which is, it's short term. It's for the now, it's for the photo shoot, it's for the runway, it's for the, special occasion. But in 4 to 6 days, it's gonna look like crap or need to be redone. So I think that's where a lot of the separation is. Like, you're not going to get the people who are behind the chair doing those once a month, all the time cuts for regular people.
You know how hard it is to find a model for those things?
So
That's
hard.
also how hard it is to fill your chair for those type of things.
Yes.
And I mean, I went to Lawrence, Massachusetts about 3 weeks ago to get my brand new Belmont chairs, which are I love mustard colored interior. Like, oh man, it is nice. But I said interior, I meant
Upholstery.
upholstery. Yes, thank you. Anyway, when I went into Lawrence, each block had 4 barbershops. So the man that I bought the chairs off of, Elvis, by the way, was his name. I bought chairs off of Elvis.
Nice.
He owned 2 retail spaces door to door, and they were both barbershops. So it would be like having a 20-chair barbershop, but in 3 locations, back to back. But if he didn't take up that space, another barbershop would. So he has 1 block, and on each street, there's 2 barbershops. So he's got 6 shops on 1 block. And if he didn't take that space, if that block wasn't his, someone else is going to come in.
But with him, what's the population of Lawrence?
Right. Right. So
That's the
up in
difference.
northeast, it's a little more challenging. But they're also doing those they tend to have a population of people who will get their haircut once a week because they're getting their lines pushed in. And when your pushed in line grows out in a week's time, you're more than ready to get that line pushed right back in. So, it's like you're saying, it's just a difference on location.
Well, and I think that's ultimately, because things like the Connecticut Barber Expo and the other affiliates, because they're pushing only one part of the industry, which, I mean, if you're talking perception on the internet, it seems like it's the majority, but
also, what do people see on the internet?
Yeah.
Customers. They come in with those expectations, and that's harder on us, too.
for sure. But I think it's like you're only serving part of it, but you're also alienating the part who either doesn't have that walking through their door, like nobody's even asking for it, so they have no need.
I've never done a single crop top ever in my life. I could do it, yes I could. I can do any haircut. You show me a picture and I'm gonna give you that haircut. But not a single person ever in the history of my experience in cutting hair has ever asked for a crop top. I could sell that all day long. If I needed to, I could do one crop top a day if I wanted to.
Sure.
But no one asks for that.
Yep.
And I'm not giving it unless it's being asked for. In my opinion, it's like a grown out lineup with porcupine. Like, I don't think it's fashionable. It's Instagram worthy. Yes, it is.
I
But
mean,
on a day-to-day basis, what man is going to tease and hairspray their hair and make it look perfect like that Instagram picture?
oh, and
It's just going to look like you have long pieces of bang sticking out of your face.
oh, especially like with the accent. Like, I mean, I love.
And it looks great on a photo.
Oh yeah, and it's fashion stuff.
Right.
But it's not daily wear. Now,
Right.
if you are somebody in your life where that's the dedication you're wanting to put into your appearance, awesome. But I don't know about you, but in the Lakes region of New Hampshire,
Right. It's not happening.
nobody.
Neither is it in Kentucky, New Hampshire. And to be quite frank, my favorite haircut to give is on ethnic hair. I really love the contrast of the curl and the darkness, and it really makes fades pop. And I have found a way to articulate cutting that type of hair. It is my most favorite thing to do. But I can tell you now, I have one man that drives from Epsom to get his haircut, and that is it. Like, I'm not, downtown anymore. And when I was downtown, like, all of the ethnic haircuts would come to me. And everyone in the shop would be like, go sit with Traci because she's good at that.
Well, you're not in a city where you're going to find a lot of that clientele. Like, this is New Hampshire. We are the second whitest state in the Union. That's a fact.
Either way, it's still my favorite
You can
haircut,
have an
and I don't
opinion
have
about
enough of it.
But that's reality. Like,
yeah,
we're cold up here. Nobody
Yeah.
likes the cold.
no one likes the cold. I don't want to be. in
We're
the
all
cold.
pale.
Well, and they all got big beards and fuzzy mustaches, and you know.
And that's just where we live. We're above the Great Lakes. It's flippin' cold up here. And we get 3 months that's nice. And boy, am I ready for those.
Oh, July and August are my favorite months, by the way.
August.
So if you can't get into my schedule in July or August,
There's a reason.
I'll be on my float going down the river.
We always take 1 week off at the end of July.
Really?
Have since the shop opened. The only time we didn't was last year because we already got 2 months off last year.
Maybe that's a good idea.
Every year, same. Always the last full week of July. That way they get it, because we live in a vacation destination.
Right.
Like, you get 1 week. You want to go enjoy the lake? Go enjoy the lake. That
Right.
the shop will be closed. Period. You can do what you want. That's the one time I assert going, you don't have the opportunity to make money this week. Sorry.
But you give them a heads up.
Oh yeah, and I'm consistent, so consistent.
And you're not paying your booth rent that week either.
Correct.
So you get technically a free month out of the year, or a free week out of the year of booth rent and a vacation.
Yep.
Forced. And you know what? I haven't taken vacation in 5 years.
Ooh.
I haven't had vacation in 5 years because that was never given. You know, like that opportunity wasn't really like. I worked in a place where there was like, all right, well, that one's taking this week and this one's taking that week. And, you know, it's like.
There needs to be coverage.
Right.
That's the
Right.
ultimate.
So it might just be nice. It's a really good idea to just shut the shop for a week, and it's a forced vacation. And if someone forced a vacation on me, like I would figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, twist my arm.
Right.
Well, and those are the things that, like, when I decided to be a shop owner, that I decided were priorities. Like, lunch breaks. That's a priority. Like, I insist that everybody take at least a half an hour for lunch. Like, get out of the shop, whatever.
Also, at my old shop, did not have that opportunity. You couldn't pee, you couldn't eat, you couldn't. And that wasn't like a.
It's more of a cultural understanding rather than hard rules.
Right. And like, it was, for me, it was more like I care about the people I work with. So if I step off, it puts more weight on this one's back, and I feel guilty.
Yep.
You know, so it's like if I had a sick day, then I know that that's putting more work on my family, my barber family's shoulders, so I feel guilt. Or if I want to go and take a week off, like someone else has to pick up that slack, and then you feel guilt because you actually care about these people. You know, so it's not like, well, see ya, I'm out of here.
That's
because
societal
you know,
enforcement.
yeah.
Because you care about the people you work with.
Right.
And so it's a self-policing.
Yeah.
For me,
And
though,
that's a difficult environment.
because I have had a friend who is a barber have 2 strokes in the barbershop, both on extremely busy days when he'd not take breaks. Thankfully, he is able to recover from those, the vast majority of it. He is still barbering now, but
It's important. It's important.
that's before age 60. I go, somebody having 2 strokes
Right.
before age 60, not okay.
Right.
And then I had another friend who had a heart attack, also in his 50s. Another friend come really, really close to having a heart attack with blood pressure, how high it was. So, and those are people who didn't take breaks, who just kept on, keeping on in a busy shop. And I go, no, that is not okay. This is why I surround myself with older people, at least 20 years older than me. That way I can be like, I'm not going to do what you did because that was bad. Or maybe I should do that.
Right.
That way, by the time I get there, I'll be as good as you.
Right.
So the motto of my health is more important than a haircut started when I opened this shop.
I don't know. I always found it like, I've been taught this since, my early 20s, and you always need to take care of yourself before you can take care of someone else. And that goes with barbering. When you're in an airplane and the gas mask falls down, they tell you to put that on your face before you help anybody else, because you need air in order to help someone else. So it's the same with providing a service for someone. Like, I've grown very, very good relationships and strong relationships with my clients. They've become friends, they've become family, and I care about them. So when I see them walk in the door, they already know that I don't take advantage of their time, and I know that their time is precious. So I don't try to drag my feet. So most of the time, I'm like, see that person walk through, and I immediately just focus on that person, because in that time, that person's what's important. But it is important, and they understand if you say, like, excuse me for 5 minutes, you know, like, I need to use the restroom, if you're booked back to back. I mean, now that we're on appointments, it's much easier to just block yourself off. You know, what I tend to do is, like, let my schedule fill up, and then that day I'll see, like, okay, I've got a break at 1 or I have a break at 4. Which one do I want to take? And I block it off. Or I wait for someone to take it, and then the other one is my block. But I still block it off, because it is important to grab a bite to eat. And, you don't want to be the shaky barber. That's, you know.
And do you want to be a customer that gets a haircut by somebody who's hangry? Like, right. Is that a haircut you want?
No, not at all. And every time I come back from my breaks, I always tell my customer, too, like, well, you got the good side of me, because I'm fully refreshed. I've used the restroom. I've eaten my food.
I've eaten. I've pooped. I'm a baby who's happy.
Yeah. You know, and I have to say, like, this last month has been really great for me, because I quit smoking cigarettes. And, like, to be on a nicotine withdrawal, dealing with a customer, and, like, at my previous location, there was no break. So when you see an end to that line, you rush through your haircut, because you know you're looking around and you're like, okay, this one's gonna finish before me, and I'm gonna let them finish before me, because then they'll be up next. But as soon as that one finishes, I'm done my haircut, because then that one can sweep and I can go outside and smoke a cigarette. And that's no way to be treating your customer. It was like a conveyor belt, you know? It's like, okay, like, the amount of time that is going to be spent on your head depicts on the amount of time it takes that person to cash out their client, and then we're done.
See, and that's also why I do not and never have had any sort of, like,
pecking order
at all.
Right.
Like, it's always been, hey, if there's 2 barbers sitting on their butt and one person walks in, whoever pops up first and greets them gets them, unless they have a preference. Like, if you don't want to work, fine.
Yep.
Somebody else will take it for you.
Yep. I base it off of, like, who has the least amount of haircuts. So, like, say one has, like, 3 haircuts for the day, and then the other one has 8, and I'm fully booked. Like, clearly you need to be giving some of the haircuts to the one that only has 3, because what's fair is fair, and we all need to make a living here. So if I'm fully booked, you're partially booked, and this person's been sitting on their butt for 2 hours, please give them the haircut.
Well, and that's the nice thing about, like, now that we're into booking software and everything,
so
by
nice.
way of requirement, for us, like, we have the option for somebody who doesn't care who they get, they can pick first available, right, and decide what time and day that they want, and it'll put them with whoever has an availability. So if they have a preference, cool, they can pick the preference. If they don't, then cool, the computer will put them wherever, you know, their time preference is. The computer does that,
like, right.
Yeah, and we would do the same thing if they call, where it's like our phones show us, like, everybody's schedule on the same screen, and it's, you know, first question is, do you have a preference for barber? If yes, all right, I can tell you their availability. If no, all right, do you want it, you know, morning or afternoon? All right, whoever has an opening in the morning, we'll try and fill it.
I have found that customers actually prefer this way, you know, and I know at my old shop, like, it was a full walk-in service, and there was no, like, put your name on a board, pick a number. It was a very interactive experience as much as possible, but I still find it to be an interactive experience. And for people who have been kind of, like, self-isolated in their bubbles of people, they're more than happy to see, like, maybe 1 or 2 people waiting and then other people in the chair, but they don't want to see a room full. People nowadays too, like, once again, I've always treated my customers that their time is valuable. And, like, in my old shop, people would wait 2 hours on a bench. So it's like, I want to give you the haircut you deserve, but I also don't want you to have to be here any longer than you need to be.
Well, that's actually why we started using a sign-in system where people put in their name and their phone number, kind of like you would at a restaurant, and your phone becomes your buzzer, hey, your table's ready sort of situation.
Right.
Where we could keep track of the line. We could have the option of, if you wanted to wait for a particular barber, it would be on there. We would know what service you were getting, and it would like calculate an estimated time for waiting, and you could go like run some errands and not be tied down to the barber chair. And especially for our downtown where it's extremely walkable, like you got to go to the bank, post office, grab a coffee, go to lunch. You can do all that just by walking like 2 seconds.
Right.
So that, and also that helping support the surrounding businesses, so they're not chained to your chair for an hour and a half waiting, and then.
And when you add children on top of that, it's like by the time the kid gets to your chair, they have no patience level left, and it makes your job a million times harder.
Yeah, so like having that sign-in system was super handy.
Absolutely. Are you continuing to use that as you kind of go back into the walk-in strategies?
So our walk-in is being transitioned because, let's face it, if any, it's one thing I've learned in 8 years of owning a shop, it's that customers don't learn quickly.
Yeah. You have to train them.
Yes, and it takes a while.
And we've trained them into appointments.
Well, they've been forced into appointments, so they've had to adapt. And I don't want them to suffer like whiplash by suddenly changing another thing.
Right.
Like, they've had to deal with enough.
Right.
So this is more of a transition where, all right, the people who are comfortable with being a walk-in and that suits their way of life and schedule and, the honey-do list and whatnot. Cool. We have that option. Specifically, we have that option on our 3 busiest days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, because we have a 6th barber who's new, who doesn't have her own clientele. So, like, there's not that many people that are going to be like,
yep,
ooh, let me wait for her. So she gets all the walk-ins on those days, which is great for her because there are people who want that, especially on those busy days. But it's also great for us. So if we're totally booked on those days, we can be like, but we've got somebody taking walk-ins.
Right.
And they're like, sweet, another option. I would much rather give people more options than be like, sorry, we don't do walk-ins.
Right. Or sorry, we can't fit you in today.
Yes. Especially if it's like a last-minute thing where it's like, we got 5 barbers taking appointments and 1 barber taking walk-ins. Take your pick.
Right. That's great. That's great.
And she's using the sign-in system so that when she gets a line, like she did on Saturday, because, day before Easter, everybody wants to look good for grandma.
Yeah, I started cutting. My first haircut on Saturday was 6:30 a.m.
I don't wish a haircut from me at 6:30 a.m. on anybody.
It came out great. We were both smiling. You got to do what you got to do. You got to fit them in for Easter,
But it was handy for her to be able to like, all right, so you guys can, grab a coffee or go walk around downtown because it's a nice day. And, we'll message you when it's your turn.
Which is nice because then you don't have people like conjugating and making other people feel uncomfortable that, oh my gosh, there's too many people in this room, which, it's going to be a slow transition back into rooms filled with people.
Well, thankfully we do have quite a bit of square footage, people can be pretty spread out and not have an issue.
Yes.
But it does get loud. Like,
it builds up quick, especially on a Saturday,
Well, and customers, I feel like for us, at least with our environment, they measure their perception of busy by the level of sound in a room.
Right.
So when they walk in and it's like, we're just doing appointments, there's nobody in waiting chairs, and, I have got a barber at lunch, or maybe 2 at lunch because they scheduled at the same time, they're like, oh, slow day? No, you just happen to be here when, 2 barbers are at lunch and it's appointments, so you're not going to see anybody else in here.
Right.
As opposed to a Saturday, which is like, there's people waiting, there's a kid playing with Legos. Thankfully, you can disinfect those real easy. And, full chairs the whole way. They go, yeah, that's loud.
Yeah.
That's why I shut my door.
Yeah.
But yeah, perception, it's an interesting phenomenon. But all right, so finishing up, I want to know what you see moving forward when it comes to Tooky and like what you want to build, because I mean, you're gonna be coming up on a year this summer, right?
Well, I bought the shop October, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So October 2020 is when I got the shop. My primary goal is just to be immersed into the community. really. Like, I plan on moving into town this summer, so I'll be able to
Awesome.
be there. I'm actually going to live in the apartment above the barbershop.
Ooh, now you
So,
can vote there.
I will fully be there. And, I'm a board member of the Chamber of Commerce, which has a lot to do with, like, developing businesses in Kentucky and that area. So it's, you know, really just being a part of the community and, willing to pay it forward, I would say, because, like, in my journey, like, so many people have paid it forward towards me individually that, like, I am so eager now that I am able to pay it forward to do so. And, whether that means as small as sponsoring a little league baseball team to as big as getting a sticker on one of the slot cars at the New England Dragway. Like, it's all about people at the end of the day. It's all about making people feel good. And it's about that support from the community. So I feel like if I am my genuine true self, like, that clearly has come out. I mean, I was voted 2021 best barber on a solicited vote. I didn't put that out there like, go vote for me, go vote for me. Like, it came by shock. And that's just because, like, I've just been genuine to myself and not allowing outside influences to kind of like blur or misguide or fog that perception of the direction that I'm headed. And genuinely, it's nothing big. I am happy with my workspace. I'm happy with the people that work in my workspace around me in their workspace. And it's all just a group of people in a room with the same passion. And the conversations that flow through that are really cool. And it's really just about the barbershop feel, the vibe, and genuinely like caring about someone, and that like started with like, Mr. C being like, well, you forgot to untuck his collar, you must not care about him. And like, at first that was a joke, and then it's like, you really look at it and it's like, I care about every one of my customers. And like, to be quite frank, when I started, I treated them like my grandparents. So if I treat a person as if they were my grandparent, I would treat them nothing but polite, with nothing but proper, and have the utmost respect for them, because those are two people in my life that I've had the most respect for. And would I let my grandfather get out of the chair without his collar fixed? Would I like let him walk away without looking the best he could be? So bottom line is like, I want more for the barber industry. I want more for barbershops. I want people to not feel like they're in competition with everyone and just be them true selves. And if you're your true self, you're gonna like be that influence and have the people that are meant to sit in your chair and not have to like necessarily like plug someone, like, stab someone else in the eyeball and be like, nope, I'm gonna take your customer because that's more money in my pocket, when really it's about vibing with people. Like that 80-20 rule that you say, like it really is about building that relationship with these people, and there's nothing else to worry about after that. So really surrounding myself in the community that I've now created around me, like, I'm in a new area, so I'm not downtown Concord. I'm in Hopkinton, Kentucky area. So it's about getting to know those people getting to know me, and me being a permanent fixture of this community. So what can I do to help this community? Because I care about this community and I want to be a part of this community, and the people in this community are becoming friends of mine, and even the people that I have yet to meet, like I'm eager to just branch off and just be a part of the community.
And that's part of long-term success. Like, you can have short-term success with being, cutting corners and being, underhanded and, trying to get the quick buck. You can be successful in the short term, but long-term full success, like with a firm foundation, is You got to build, it's your community, you got to love it. And I think that, the best barbers are ones that really put in roots, because that community will invest in you and your shop the more you invest in it.
And I agree with that, yep.
That's return on investment, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Traci, thank you so much for coming up on your day off to talk to me, especially
Absolutely.
with this much of a hike.
It's all good. It was my pleasure.
All right, we look forward to seeing what will come next for Tookies. I will keep an eye on the Instagram for sure. Take care.